Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to Absolute Secure Endpoint 11.0 updates. I am your host, Kat Zinn. I'm a senior CSM here at Absolute Security. And before that, I worked for a very large school district in Texas. So I definitely feel your pain. We're just going to go ahead and jump into the console today and start going through the updates. Okay. First, we are going to discuss the updates that we've had since the last major update. We did have some updates to Rehydrate or Playbooks. Depending on your license type, you may or may not have access to this feature. But to get there, we're going to go to Policies, and then this is where you would turn it on for Playbooks. You can turn on that feature. It will let you know if there's some devices that cannot run the playbooks and what that is. But once you have it turned on, and just as a reminder, this is the feature where if you have something like the CrowdStrike outage or another outage that's causing a blue screen of death to flip over and over, or if, heaven forbid, you have a ransomware attack, this lets us get in before the OS loads, and you can add or remove programs, run scripts, do all that good stuff, or even restore a golden image or change. So the new playbook, if you would select your device here, then you can go to Run Playbook. And the new ones that we have are the ability to run a script from a file. So if you've ever run a script the old way, you just kind of have to put your script in here. So if you run the script from a file, then you will see you can just put the host URL here. And the nice thing too here is if you have a BitLocker recovery key, we've talked before about that you can collect those with our custom data collector. So you could just insert that BitLocker key if that is something that is required in your environment. Right. Also, when you unenroll a device, it's going to clean up the actions on the server. So it will prevent any unexpected actions if a device is re-enrolled. There's also additional events when a device is unenrolled showing that the action has been canceled. So sometimes also you'll sell that device if it's a surplus device for your environment. Maybe you had a pending freeze or a pending wipe on that. If you unenroll the device, it will stop that action from happening. So that way it clears up those freezes before they go to another customer that may have bought your device. Also, if you come to your action rules, if you create an action rule, and this is where you can choose a device state, maybe you want all your Chromebooks to go into a particular OU, or you want any devices that are outside the United States to automatically be frozen, those kind of devices. Before you had a cooldown period, or you could set 1 to 4 days. You can now choose up to 30 days for that cooldown period. We come back to the dashboards. So people have been asking for saved widgets that they can share with other teammates. So as we work towards that with the product team, what you can do is save certain widgets as a report. So if the data source is devices or applications, like in this case, the Windows version, not 11, you'll see here the option to save as a report. And as always, when you save it as a report, you can share with everybody in the console. Or once you save the report, you can instead schedule that report to go to emails of people that may or may not be in the console. Also, we had some improvements to the application compliance reports. So we have an improved performance. You can see that loaded pretty quickly. So with large data sets, we have improved the performance on that. There's also fewer duplicate columns. Like before, we had application and application name, and those have been standardized here. You can also contains and other text filters on things like policy name. So instead of saying policy name is this or policy group is that, you can say contains. So say you had students middle school, students high school, students elementary school, you could just say policy group contains students, and it would grab all three of those. And then, of course, you can also filter by the application or the status. So, of course, you could say if the status is non-compliant and narrow it down to those, or if you just wanted to look at your, WhatsApp applications, it's required to be on there. You can see the installed version doesn't match the required version. So you could even narrow those filters down to one particular status detail if you're looking at large groups. Of course, this is our demo console, so we don't have that many devices in here, but I'm sure you could see the applications to make things easier on you. And then, of course, once you do that, you can save it as a report and again, schedule it or share it so that you can more easily narrow that down later. Right. And then the thing that I am most excited about is here under account settings. You can now come to the login and security and set this for up to 240 minutes, which is 4 hours. Best practice is no more than, I would say, an hour. That's a good balance between you being able to take an IT help desk call and turn away moment and then come back and it still be there so that it's not erasing what you're doing. So it's a good balance, I think, between saving that data and security. The other setting that you can go to will be under your name. And down here, we do default to metric as a Canadian-based company originally. You can now change that to imperial. So when you're looking at like geolocation, it will tell you how accurate it is within a certain set of parameters. So you can look at that as feet and miles instead of meters. Finally, if you want to look at some new columns here, so we do have the agent version, which we've always had, but there's also a core agent version. And if you've ever had to look at this when you're trying to determine whether your devices have been updated or not, it was kind of confusing because like currently we are in 11.0. So people would come here and see 8. Oh, we're only on version 8. And that would be a little confusing because this was just the components of a particular portion of our agent. So now we have the core agent version, which shows the different components. And then the quote unquote real agent version that we go by. So currently 11.0. You'll also see some new status triangles. This will show failed to install component. And you can see this particular one is a delayed installation and upgrade due to jitter. So once we push the updates out, when we have a major update, it can take up to 2 weeks or so. So out to your devices, we do jitter to balance your network so that if you have hundreds of thousands of devices, as some of you do, it phases that out between 6 and 24 hours so that it's not a big network load all at one time. So you may see that error, or you may see a newer agent version is available, but it hasn't called in or been upgraded. There's some other new messages like failed to uninstall component, failed due to communicate with the server, or component uninstallation requires a device reboot. So you may see those, and that may give you some clues as to why things aren't updating if you have that issue. We also have a new OS officially supported by our agents, and that is Windows Server 2022 Data Center Edition. So if you have any servers, Data Center Edition versions of the Windows Server 2022, you can put our agent on there and protect those devices as well. There are some features that are not supported just because of the way that OS works, which are Playbooks, wipe, geolocation, and antivirus reporting. So you can use that if you need to. And then also under policies, if you look at the custom data, so just as a reminder, if you haven't used this before, so we collect about 400 or 500 pieces of information, including like monitors, keyboards, how much disk space is left, all those kinds of things that are in the WMI for your devices. We collect those, but sometimes there are things that you want to collect that we're not already collecting. The most popular of those is the so that you can remotely join a device to Intune without laying hands on it. So you can set this up at that, or BitLocker recovery keys. So sometimes you can't get into the sources that house that for you. Maybe the device is off your domain or isn't communicating for whatever reason. Some people like to have a backup available, so this is a place where you can do that. So some of our larger customers requested there to be more slots available, so you can have as many of these as you need now. Also, under application resilience, we have new versions. So because we are in the firmware of devices as they roll off the assembly line for most devices, that makes our agent persistent and able to self-heal. So because of that, we can also self-heal some of your applications if you configure them to do so. So major things like BitLocker, Intune, Avanti, Endpoint Manager, the things that you want to have resilient in your environment, you can put that here. Let me admit, we have the resilient applications that you can choose here, and we do have some updates to those. We have higher versions of Secure Access and 6 Sense Responder, of course, because those are our products. Also Cisco Secure Agent, Citrix Workplace, Qualys Cloud Agent, Tenable Nessus Agent. So if you need to go to higher versions of those, you can do so in the resilience applications section here in policies. Defender for Endpoint now supports different zip file names to support specific deployment packages for different policy groups as well. And then our API has new endpoints for custom EDD rules and scan management. So if you are using our APIs to integrate with any of like your ticketing systems, inventory systems, those fields are now available. And finally, our assistant here has had some improvements, like it has a better understanding of time and dates now. So if you say, show me devices that have not connected in 2 months, it'll now understand what you mean by that. We also have improved app usage analytics for more reliable calculations of usage across, sorry, let me let that else in, for more reliable calculation of average usage across devices. And you can also resize the box. So if you, we'll just put an example in here. So it's a little hard to see sometimes. You can now resize the box and have a bigger view. And you can see you can add to dashboard or export. If it's something that's widgetable, you can add to dashboard. Otherwise, you can export the data. And eventually we will have where you can just add it to your reports. So that is it. I know we had some latecomers. Did you guys have any questions about any of the updates? We do have this recorded, so you can review it later. But did you have any questions about anything on any of the updates? Okay. If there's not any questions, then we will go ahead and end it. Are there any other general questions or anything that you guys needed help with today? Okay, then we'll go ahead and wrap this up. You guys can watch the recording later. And if you have any questions, just let me know.